everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. It's truly a pleasure to be part of this esteemed panel of CEOs, and of course to all of the audiences who've joined us. We know this is the start of the session, but I can promise you that when you get to hear from CEOs themselves about topics like culture, values, it doesn't get better than a CEO. These are the captains of their ships. These are the people who are the front runners for the entire organization. They're the face of it. They're the inspirers. They're the people who lead the organization into success. So when we have a bunch of CEOs who turn around and say, I want to be part of a conversation around values and culture, that's when culture actually comes to life. So your very presence here, esteemed panelists, itself is a big shift forward. With that, I've been tasked with the, all-important responsibility of trying to get the best and get the insights of our CEOs here. And when we talk about culture, it is automatically something that all HR communities refer back to leadership, the importance of leadership, the importance of CEOs driving that culture. Lots has been written by various organizations, business schools around how culture drives impact, culture drives performance, culture drives growth, but most importantly, culture drives a happy and healthy workplace. So with that, the most important thing for me when we talk about culture and values is purpose. Because you don't have culture and values without a sound purpose which tells you what your core intent is as a company. And when we talk about purpose, today the definition of purpose is so much more than profit, revenue, growth. We're not living in that world anymore. That's important. That's definitely important to drive us forward, but it's equally about profit, about growth beyond profit, or aspects of purpose which drive greater good for the world. So the question that I have, which I want to pose to all of our CEOs today is, today the world demands, customers, shareholders, stakeholders, employees are all looking for a purposeful organization that is going beyond the realms of profit. And that's a tough one, right? It's great to write on paper, but it's a tough one. So the question that I have for each one of you, and I'll start with you, Amit, as you go closest to me. Can you describe, one is, A, do you believe in it? And the second is, what have you done to be bold about it? It's not easy. Any examples that you can quote from your own experiences of where you actually took the courage to say, I'm going to do something good instead of chasing that profit target?
Thanks for putting me on the spot. Good morning, everyone. So, do I agree with it? Obviously, I mean, I run a mental health organization, so it's easier for us in some ways to be purposeful because of what we do for a living. But what we've done in the last few years is very consciously described and defined what our cultural values are. Right? We sat down as a team, as a collective, and debated and described what our values are. We put them on paper. We put tangible outcome measures around those. So we said, actually, if you are being transparent, what does that look like? If you're not being transparent, what does that look like? So we've actually put all of that down on paper. And what it does, and our first core value is to put our clients first. And we define that in a very, very tangible way around everything from how we do refunds, to how we do rescheduling, to how we address any client concerns. All of that, and we say that we have 9 cultural values, but our client first value is the first value we aspire to. And we have defined it that way. And so everything else then focuses around that. And what it does, it aligns the whole organization to think of that as a core value when you're figuring out a complex solution, when you have to prioritize, let's say, revenue against client satisfaction, or trying to manage a crisis situation, which happens a lot in our space, and how do you put everything behind it to support the client. So all of these things then play out very tangibly on a day-to-day basis because we define that as a cultural value. And that really motivates a whole bunch of people who come to work with us, not because we pay extraordinary salaries, but because they want to work in the space and they want to work towards that common goal of solving for mental health in this country. So I think for us, it's really played out. It's easier, I think, for us than some other organizations. But it's played out by defining the values, by debating them, by doing very open debates and training and induction when people start working with us on those values, and then being clear about how they rank in order of priority. And then it plays out in how people operate day to day, and then how that motivates them to stay engaged with when connecting their own purpose to the organizational purpose. I don't know if that helps.
Great, thank you so much, Amit. Really appreciate it. Anubha, your thoughts? Bold moves you made in your business to go beyond profit.
So, as a bold move, I will say you asked an example. So, in last, if 2 years, 3 years, if something happened in the world is a corona, and that was a time where I know very few companies. We were one of the companies. We have not deducted a single rupees salary from anyone. Not at that. We had a 300 doctor team, which was taking care of all India people who were suffering from corona. We have taken care of them, their hospitalization and everything. And even after that, we provided them a kind of counseling, mental health, backup from doctors and all. And we gave people a lot of time to come back in a normal way, because corona took away a lot of things from a lot of people. So it was keeping profit aside. The organization has built a big example. We have a list of people who used to send emails that they are very thankful to the organization and all. So this is example I remember now.
It's a very good point you made, especially during COVID. A
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
organizations and leaders stepped up to the task, went beyond the call of profit, went beyond the call of revenue. It's a fantastic example. Mithun, your thoughts?
Yeah, so in the food space, we deal with a whole lot of a gamut of consumers, people, service and all of that. So if I really look at it from a purpose to profit scenario, where profit has come secondary and purpose has been primary, one of the things that we do clearly, which is also our own value system, is to do everything with the word wow. So for example, the kind of products that we create has to be wow. The quality of products has to be wow. And what we add into it also needs to be wow. So some examples where purpose has defined over profits is, for example, a lot of our food range. While we have momos, we have Chinese cuisine, we have chicken and a couple of other products. We ensure that we don't add MSG into our products at all. While the entire industry adds MSG, we made it a point that we are going to serve healthier versions of our products. So while you can't create, really, if you look at recipes, restaurant recipes, that is one of the ingredients that's added to make it more tastier. We decided not to do it at all, and that drove that purpose very, very clearly, that we're going to have products which are as much as possible clean. And while profit was set aside, we recently also launched something else, which is a beverage, a coconut beverage, where most brands today, while they call it coconut, are all added with, they're made out of concentrate, and they're not really coconut water. So we ensured that we do 100% coconut. So in the product itself, there's so much of value of the organization going in. So we will not do something which is off the chart, which doesn't define our values and purpose. For example, even in terms of supply chain, defining and working with supply chain partners who are purpose driven are also a couple of things that we have defined within our own our own value systems. For example, even traceability of products. For example, if you look at it, if there is a raw material that is really procured, like example chicken, there is no traceability of that from the beginning, from the time it is reared till the time it is used for production. So that traceability also matters, because a lot of purpose, value, and systems are also into this. So all of these together, while they don't make profits for us, but it only seems that I really wouldn't say that it doesn't make profits, but it is those values which can create profits, then rather say that it doesn't make profits.
Absolutely.
So these are some of the examples that we do internally.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mithun. Sudhir, your thoughts?
Yeah, good morning. I just want to say that the real world is different from the theoretical world. That's what I have seen. The real world is almost messy, where you will appreciate the value and purposes are getting diluted day by day, except a few industrial houses who are focusing on the purpose and value. It's very important for a HR firm to guide the industries to maintain purpose and value. One side you have a Ferrari at 200 miles per hour. One side the industry is not able to move 40 miles per hour. So we have to see the vectors of the velocity and scalability of the business. Otherwise, the dilution is going to continue. Coming back to Purnima, what he has mentioned about the ESG. ESG is nothing but the environment, social, and governance. I really doubt that sustainability was in the picture. Now the ESG has come. Where is the boundary? Until now, the industry is not matured on sustainability. Still, we are talking about the sustainability. Sustainability also includes everything. When you talk about ESG, ESG also whether superseding the sustainability or below the sustainability. Yes, the entire global, the ESG matter is talking about all of value and a purpose and everything. If you talk about if your value and a purpose are all circulating around the ESG. If I say for an example, environment, we have gone for a zero carbon prints. We have informed our all entire process industries to focus on the re-engineering to get the zero carbons. We have informed our supply chain partners to focus on the zero carbon. It may take another 10 years. It's not a nearest time. Talk about the social. Yes, the biggest issue is on the social, how to add the value to the business. Because if you have a real good manpowers, you can make the business. If you don't have a manpower, you have to shut down, pull down the shutters. That is a fundamental things. So what we do in the social area, since our kind of industries are having 90% of the women's, we take care really of the women's, their social status, their healthcare status. We have provided the legal aids. We have provided the insurance aids. We have provided the financial aids. We are providing how their children in which school they are studying. Can we participate paying some money to their early educations? Is there any dropouts? Because that indirectly affects the workflow. That indirectly affects the efficiency of the work. If a woman is not peaceful, the business will not sustain. That is a fundamental thing we have to accept. And coming back to the governance, yes, we are really, that is a very difficult area. If you have a money, you can talk about governance. If you don't have a money, you can't talk about the governance. Then what we need, a budgetary allocation or some funding from the government or the funding from the big industrial houses to focus on the governance. That's what my opinion.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Purnima.
Thank you, Sudhir. I think one thing's very clear from each of our CEOs. It is possible. It is absolutely possible to have purpose beyond profit. You find ways within your organization, you find those opportunities in the societies you serve, you find ways with the customers you are serving. There are opportunities that lie beyond profit, and it's in the smallest of things that matter. You ignite, you inspire that purpose with your people because you're bringing them closer to a higher purpose that people itself value, one that's beyond money, one that's beyond financials. And I think that's the lesson to learn. And this is our CEO community speaking. So I think if there's anything to be inspired by, this is it. But I want to quickly go into a bit more practicality from a CEO's lens. And Mithun, I'm going to put you in a bit of a spot. There's purpose that says, you know, I want to do good for the world, I want to do good for communities, I want to do good for customers and people and employees. But practically, how does that work? You spoke about some wonderful examples from WOW, you know, how you've incorporated the philosophy of WOW right from supply chain all the way to customer design or what you put into your products. But when it comes to the strategy and the goals of the organization, how have you linked that and created a clear line of visibility to that purpose?
Sure. I think it's a really tough task if you ask me. But then these tasks are more critical than many other tasks because it is a overarching system which can drive the business as a whole. So if I can take some live practical examples of my own self, what I do is couple of things is actually to even communicate very clearly on the whys. Because while you're the leader, you can't expect everybody right there to really align with your vision and your purpose. While if you can't communicate that clearly and define that clearly and keep asking the whys, for example, why is this purpose critical for us? And why should anybody go after this purpose? So one is about communicating clearly. So what I do is that communication happens very, very openly, and there's a transparent communication, and that really drives couple of these purposes and alignments with the teams. Number two, what we have done in the recent past, and I have also done this earlier, is actually to embed your KPIs and KRAs into the values. So what happens is, the KPIs are derived out of values. So, and they are also measurable. While HR folks will say KPIs need to be smart KPIs. Can you really measure? If you say integrity, how do you measure integrity, right? So how do you measure entrepreneurial mindset, for example? So those value systems and KPIs, what we've done is we have kind of managed to integrate it as well as ensure that they are measurable. So what that also defines is every manager asks his team that under this KPI, what have you achieved? So that really drives the purpose, because obviously everybody is getting evaluated all through, including me. So have I aligned to that KPI is also important, right? So other than that, obviously, because we are a food company, we are always talking to a whole lot of consumers. We have a 1 million plus unique users, who come into our QSRs and our FMCG products, and they buy in, and they leave their data with us. So we are also answerable to them, and a lot of questions come in on product itself. So all of these embedded together, I think it is very much possible. While it is difficult, but it all starts with us. Leaders and CXOs and the leadership team have to drive it, and CEO is finally, according to me, totally accountable to this. And the culture and value and purpose is all driven by the CEO, and I need to live it.
Yeah.
I need to live it, and I need to show that to people, and I need to demonstrate it. And so that's what I do practically.
What a great view, Mithun, honestly, because I think the very thought of what is traditional KPIs, which tend to be very quantitative, we're looking at it by revenue and product sales and profitability, to be able to link it back and link the value back to say, how do you live the values while meeting these performance indicators? I think that's a fantastic view. So something for all of us to take away from. But in all of this midst, the challenge comes that, none of you guys hold jobs which are enviable. The role of a CEO to be the perfect role model to an entire organization of people, show up with customers, show up with stakeholders, regulators, and maintain formidable relationships, but at the same time, be powerful and grow constantly. It is not an enviable job. It's hard, right? So in the midst of it, let's add the complexity of everything that's going on around the world. We're talking about, macro and microeconomic factors which are making business hard. In the midst of all of this, Anupam, I want to come to you to ask, how do you actually balance all of this together? There are so many things to focus on, and then you got purpose and values to live up to. You need an entire organization rallying around pretty much the same priorities you have and the vision you have. How do you create that sense of shared purpose in the midst of so much chaos, so many priorities? What do you do?
Thank you. What I see is we need to share a clear and inspiring organization's vision and understand where it's heading to. And we need to include our our, talent or the team's roles and responsibilities around the company's vision. That's something that I look at, and having transparent and open communications with the team. And when I say open communications, they should also have a sense of that they've been heard of. And of course, rewards and recognitions, creating a positive work culture around us, ongoing training and development activities. And as CEOs, we also need to be setting up a tone, and our teams usually look upon us on how resilient, attentive, and confident we are at challenging situations that come along. And but the last but not the least that I want to emphasize is the trust. It's a real motivational factor for our employees, where if they know that they've been trusted to do a particular role, they can go that extra mile and be inclusive in the organization.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more, Anupa, because trust ultimately leads to empowerment. And there is no greater motivation for people of all generations to feel that sense of empowerment, to be responsible for something, to take something forward. Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. On pivoting a little bit from, now that we understand that purpose and values are all pivotal to how an organization succeeds, we have to talk. A culture does not exist, or a value does not exist in isolation. You have to look at the context of where people are. In today's world, one of the biggest topics that has emerged is the issue around well-being and wellness. There is not a single research study today that does not indicate that mental well-being and wellness is struggling amongst our workforce. There are too many priorities, there's too much going on, there are financial challenges, and of course, post-pandemic, things probably got even worse. It's a real global struggle. Almost every organization, I can assure you today, keeps wellness and well-being at the topmost of its priorities. Amit, you are, of course, leading an organization that does this for a living, right? And as the CEO, you obviously double hat with a very, very big responsibility for the society at large, for taking care of our workforces, creating solutions that actually can make a difference. I have two questions for you, Amit, and I'm going to make it a bit hard. How did we get here? That's the first question. And I guess, moving a little away from that, one is, why did we get here? Second is, now we've got every company in the world looking at digital well-being solutions. They're looking at rechanging their benefits and flexi leave. There's some fabulous ideas that are coming through. But is this going to turn things around? What can we do that's going to be different, that will be a game changer, that will solve this problem?
Thank you. How did we get here? I think we were always here. We just found out recently that we were always here. If you look at data going back 10, 15 years ago, they're still showing a lot of, Indian data I'm talking about, a lot of employee anxieties, depression, stress within the corporate India workforce. I think we were always here. I think what COVID allowed was the conversation to happen. I think when leaders and CEOs stood up and said, I'm struggling, and that allowed everybody else to also get the permission to say, yes, so am I. I don't think we got here recently. I think the numbers have been staggering for a long time. I think we've been ignoring them. India has a 95% treatment gap, which means that out of the 200 million people who have mental health difficulties, 40% of whom live in corporate India, people don't get access to support. 95% people don't get access to support. So we've always been here. Right? So I think, and a lot of people, Deloitte did a lot of work in the last 2 years around mental health and organizational mental health, and we've been working with over 100 organizations now, looking at their mental health, large and small, right? And some things strike out with that experience very, very clearly, right? Initiatives go only so far in solving the problem, right? You have to take a step back and think about your identity as an organization itself. Who do I want to be? And it's a living, breathing thing. The organization is a living entity. It's a dynamic entity. Who do I want to be as an organization? How do I want to work with the people within my organization, my stakeholders? How do I want to engage with them? What is the level of transparency? What is the level of communication? What's the level of openness that I want to inculcate? How do I connect individual purpose to organizational purpose? And we were talking about this, Mittu was talking about this, and one of the things that's very clear is, it starts right at the hiring process. Right? How do you actually align at that step and say, okay, this is where you want to go, this is where we are going. Are we both going to go in the same direction or not? And it's hard, but you try and do it as much as possible. People do spend so much time on skill testing, and the purpose alignment gets missed out a lot. And that creates so much of dissatisfaction downstream at both ends, the organization and the individual, and that leads to a lot of mental health difficulties downstream, right? So how do you, as a first step when you're hiring people, align on the purpose alignment and the cultural alignment, right? If you're an organization that values integrity very highly or sense of purpose very highly, and you get somebody who's sell at all costs, and is that the right person for your team, even though they might be a great salesperson, right? So how do you get that cultural alignment and purpose alignment right at the beginning? I think the next step is, how comfortable are leaders standing up and openly talking about their own challenges? Right? I've done at least 3 or 4 of these roundtables with leaders of large organizations, listed organizations, where they've stood up and said, this is how I was struggling. And to their entire town hall of 23,000 people across the globe, they've said, I was struggling, this is how I got help. And what we see on the ground is, when those conversations happen, the engagement with mental well-being just rockets up. Because suddenly you've got permission to talk about your own challenges, right? So how well are leaders willing to talk about their own challenges openly? Because we're all struggling. Anybody who tells me that CEOs and founders are not struggling is just making it up, right? I work with enough CEOs now in the last 7 years to know that we're all struggling in some way or the other. I think the third is around, how do you take a systemic and programmatic approach? Instead of saying, I'll just do isolated initiatives. How do I look at this as a program of things that will have things in it, but it's actually built around a program? How do you create multiple touch points for individuals? Not everybody will access services in the same way. Not everybody will go and speak to a therapist. Not everybody will go and use a self-care tool. Not everybody will come to a workshop. So how do I create multiple touch points as part of a program where I can meet almost everybody where they are in their journey, where I can try and connect with people based on what their comfort level is, what their awareness level is, what their readiness level is, right? And so I think that's where I sometimes struggle with when I'm talking to large organizations especially, and they're like, oh, we do wellness Wednesdays and we do this workshop on a Friday, and I'm like, okay, but what's the overall strategy? Can you just step back and look at how are you thinking about this longitudinally? How are you thinking about it as an identity? And I think that's still missing a lot of places. So I think those 3-4 things around leadership buy-in, around thinking about it as a program, around building your identity around emotional support are quite important. And then the initiatives play a very important part in plugging into that. I think what we sometimes end up doing is going the other way around and doing initiatives and hoping that they create a program, basically.
Yeah.
So that helps.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Amit. And I think there's 3 very important key takeaways and very refreshing, I might add. One is obviously start hiring for cultural alignment, right? Get that equation right so that the reality of both the employer and the employee is very clear, right? I think the second point that that's so critical is vulnerability in leadership. Be open to talk about it, be open to talk about your own challenges, and of course, create inclusive programs, not initiatives which are task-based, and know what problem you are solving for. The point, does a Wellness Wednesday solve the actual problem at hand? It might not in the scheme of things. That's why a programmatic approach, if I can call it that, which is more inclusive, helps people meet the midway.
I was just going to add that, just the hiring part, right? So we are a small organization. We are 250 people. We are not a very big organization. But we started from being a 5-people team 8 years ago, right? And so what really worked for us is we've got at least 2 or 3 people who were right there right at the beginning who now become cultural ambassadors. So you can't get hired to the organization without speaking to one of them. Because now you know that and all they're testing was cultural alignment. And I used to do that myself when I was a small team, and now because we're hiring a lot more people, then there's at least 3 or 4 people who you have to meet within the organization. And then I'm hoping we'll be able to scale that up to many more people as we grow, right? So I think that's one part that becomes very critical, is saying, what does that tangibly look like? What does that cultural fit mean and defining your cultural values and asking people tangible examples. Okay, everybody says I'm transparent, I'm inclusive. Give me an example. What did you do in the last, even what did you do in the last role that was sort of enabled that value? So actually asking tangible questions, asking people to give their thought process really helps sort of drill down, and especially for senior roles. Right? Because, and we've turned down amazing profiles in the last 2 years where we felt that this is not going to fit with us culturally. And vice versa. We actually ended up hiring sometimes mediocre talent because they were great cultural fits, and they've grown really well because they came in the right environment. So I think that practically solving for that by building cultural ambassadors, drilling down into the detail and having a separate conversation just around cultural alignment, and then making sure that you don't get tempted by the amazing profile, the rock star, and don't hire for that rather than this. I think this becomes very important.
Thanks, Amit. Very, very refreshing views, I must say. From well-being and wellness, let's talk about the next biggest issue around culture, right? Everybody talks about and has this great ambition. There is not a single leader or HR community that does not believe maintaining a great culture is what motivates and attracts talent and retains talent. Great, and again, great research around it, great, statistics around it, great studies and surveys prove it. All very well and good. But the real question is, it's not that easy. Maintaining a happy culture or a great environment all of the time, when you have so many people, when you're marred with so much macro and microeconomic pressures of growth, pressures of financially sustaining oneself, how do we solve for that mystery? What are the practical challenges? Nitesh, this is my question to you. What does the ground reality look like?
Look, a lot of companies, what they speak, they do. What is on the paper, also they implement. A lot of companies, maybe it's only on the paper and reality is different. What my friend also said. But sometimes it's creating culture is not a very big task. It's a very be on the basics. Go to the employee and ask, how are you, how you're doing. If even I know the guy is struggling, not delivering, saying, hey, you have done good job in the past. How can I help you? It's very basic sometimes from CEO table, it helps. If you talk, communication is very important. If you talk properly to an employee, you are going to win his heart for next 6 months, 1 year. He will be motivated and he will deliver what is need to be delivered. Right? How you communicate is very, very important. Sometimes as a leader, you have to lead with the example. And a lot of small things which we know sometimes we don't do. I mean, you do feedback session, you do town hall sessions. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't do as a leader. You don't make it compulsory that every month, Friday, last Friday or something, I have to do that. With the pressure of sales, profit, whatever, we sometimes sacrifice these things. Again, I'm saying it's very basic things we have to do with the create a culture. Culture we can define in a different way, from PPT to, I don't know, I mean, in a big way. But I feel leading with the example, talking to the person, taking his, sometimes you have to see that when you were other side of the table, how you used to think, what is their problems, what they feel. I mean, you need really patience, a lot of patience to think the way he's talking. And these days, definitely the wellness programs and that is also helping. But I believe as a CEO, what you can counsel your person and create a trust between you. Right? We talked about trust. If employees trusting you as a CEO, I know some people, I tell my boss, till you are there, I'm there. I believe that to my boss. So this kind of trust, if we can develop with one-to-one with the every leader, I can do it my -1, my -1 can do with their -1. Yeah. I think that is going to, together we are going to build the trust and the culture of the organization. If I treat my reportee well, they will do the further same things. So as a individual, my role and responsibility is very, very big, which we can define into several things, as I'm saying, do town hall, do feedback sessions, do one-to-one, go for lunch with the employees, and a lot of things are there which I don't have to define here.
Right.
Everybody knows. But sometimes we miss to do that.
Yeah.
Very basics. So I say stick to basics.
Yeah.
Create a small thing, reward program, recognition. Even we know that guy is not doing well, do a paper talk with him, and guy can come back. I have found 70-80% time, guy who is not doing well or not performing, when you do pep talk with the confidence, ki, yaar, you are good, you can do this, you can do that, they bounce back.
Absolutely.
So culture is with small effort, and it starts from you. I mean, you means as a leader. If you don't do, nobody will do in your organization. I'm sure about it.
Absolutely, and great takeaways from that. We don't have to be very cerebral and intellectual. Get the basics right, do it consistently. Don't sacrifice it. I think it's a great takeaway. And that probably comes back to your point. Be consistent with what you do if you're making that promise. And of course, lead with empathy and be that example. Yeah. And I think you and Anupa both agree, trust ultimately is what is going to be a big motivator. I want to come to, Sudhir, very specifically to yourself. You represent a sector that the whole country relies on to grow at fast pace, right? The MSME business. Challenges of talent attraction and retention are quite tricky, right? In your environment. You have a lot of financial pressures, you have human resource shortages, you've got to look for skilled talent, but at the same time balance, cost versus, what you can recover as revenue. With all of this, you've got regulatory pressures, limited tech enablement, the pressures are a lot. And in the midst of all of this, you've got to attract and retain talent that is going to take you and build your growth for the future. How do you overcome these challenges? What is your perspective for the MSMEs industry?
It's very difficult questions because she's trying to make the dead man alive. If I see up to Corona, there was no talk about MSME. Only industrial houses, financial houses, HR houses, investment houses. After Corona, some people came and formed MSME institutes. Auditing firm formed MSME audits. Compliance team formed MS compliance. Investment panel formed about the MSME investments. Government came out to fund the MSME. So it is a MSME government protocol area. But the real issues what she mentioned, Purnima, it's not taken care. We have to understand what are those points. One is MSMEs are not inside the urban area. It is outskirts of the urban area, rural area, tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities. That is why they comprise just 6.5 crore, if on today. And there are always the migration of the skilled laborers or the qualified people from the rural to urban, not reverse. When the migration happens from the rural to urban, there is the problem that talent shortage starts. You pay how much money a person will come to the MSME in a rural area or a tier 2 cities, but after a few months, his mind will go to the city life and he goes to city life. The question is, couple of years before, I used to have the financial man next to me. Today, I'm putting an HR man next to me. He's giving me a brief. There are shortages in those factories, those manufacturing, they don't have the people, there are no order. How to overcome this? Because today, 70% of my time is going to sort out these HR issues. One of the biggest challenges for me, the compliance. Government has got a lot of rules and regulations because they want to achieve $10 trillion economy. I'm heading a Government of India panel. There is so much of stress and pressure on us to perform, to bring more industry. But where are the employees? Where are the workers? Where are the staffs? Where I will get? So here I feel the HR, that's what we have started, training the peoples, going to the various, opening up the district, qualified district training centers, talking to the local institutes, sending the HR people to tie up with the various small villages, taking help of self-help groups and missions where the women's power is there, talking to them Can you educate your people to this level? And we are their employer for you. Like the bigger companies are hiring a lot of peoples 1 year, 2 year before. They are funding to the institutes to get the talents. But the MSMEs cannot fund. So therefore, we have to survive. So we are taking this course of action. Coming back to this, attritions. Attritions will be there. You have attrition at a higher level, you have attrition at a middle level, you have attrition at lower level. So what we did, we had migrant laborers from northeast to southern parts of the India. Eventually what happens, some northeastern states are opening up the various industries in the northeastern states. Again, these people are going back. So to overcome this, couple of months before we discussed with the government of Karnataka and Tamil Nadu to set up the center of excellence in small cities. What is the center of excellence? Until now, no one has given a focus to these industries, how to take up these industries. So with the creation of the center of excellence, backed up by various technological companies, creating a skill, creating AR situation, the VR situation, and upgrading to a small robots where it can come to the factories and replenish some of the human works. And another point, coming back to the another challenges is that how to implement the rules and regulations of the government. So we don't have sufficient resources. Neither government have sufficient resources. One side regulation, other side implementation is poor. So we have requested the government to hire a third-party agencies for implementations. And definitely MSMEs need funding. Because at the end of the day, being an CEO, I have a pressure on the order, pressure on the profitability, pressure on the survival. And many times we overlook the real core values and core cultures. We know everything. We are also attending seminar, groups, various things. But at the end of the day, we really deviate from the primary issues. The reason being that our focus is more diverted towards the irregular issues. That is what is killing us. However, the thing is that how the human resource department, we are in a process of strengthening that department to understand the various conceptual consequences so that to help the business to grow. Then CEO will have some time for the maintaining the ethics, the balance, the kind of new concepts which are coming up in the market, sustainability, ESG, the value, the cultures, everything together. Because at the end of the day, the employees to be happy. If the employee is happy, they will stay with us. If the employee is not happy, they'll go to somewhere else. That's what is my feeling.
No, and I think it's such a unique take because not all of us are we're probably not knowledgeable enough, not everybody about MSMEs and the struggles that they face, especially in that you not only are operating in environments which are difficult, you're also dealing with a lot of labor migration into cities to the point that you made. I think very, very important takeaways. In fact, Sudhir, you also answered my other question that I had for you, which is how do you deal with those talent shortages? How do you look to constructively upskill people to better their lives? And ideas around building centers of excellence, tying up for technical partnerships, brilliant ideas.
I'll talk about to intervene, sorry. There is a word called skilling, reskilling, upskilling. We cannot go for a downskilling. So we have started doing the cross-skilling.
Yeah.
What is a cross-skilling? From India, we can talk about cross-skilling. People will not appreciate. If Americans talk about cross-skilling, everyone will appreciate. So what is a cross-skilling? If someone is efficient in the operational area, we are asking, there is a real shortage of the marketing area. Please learn about the marketings and go to the marketing area. If someone is interested in the marketing, doing marketing, and we have a huge vacuum in the manufacturing, and we'll pay you more, can you go to the manufacturing? So he needs to be trained a little bit to go into the manufacturing because we are not dealing with rocket science. And we are not dealing with very difficult activities, impossible activities. Everything is possible if we have a passion and we have a zeal that yes, it is possible. That is what we have started doing the cross-skillings to fill up the vacuums.
No, thank you. I mean, I think very, very poignant things for us to take away from. I think some of the points that you raised is actually an issue in a lot of industries. So I think thank you for that. On that point, since you covered upskilling and reskilling, Anupa, I want to ask you that question, and especially, you represent the tech industry. The fact that today jobs cannot be linear, skills cannot be linear. They are highly fluid. You are expecting a deep level of convergence. It's everything, everywhere, all at once, literally coming to life. It's not that easy. Everyone talks about scaling skills, dramatically shifting and evolving and getting multiple skills. How do we practically make this happen?
Like Mr. Sudhir said, upskilling is one of the key strategies. And what I see is we have to provide the training material, technology, and time for doing such things, and supporting them with coaching, mentors, and subject matter experts. And we currently are seeing a 15-year low point across the world where we are of talent shortage. We are currently at, according to an Outlook employment survey, we're at about 69% of companies are reporting resource shortage, whereas we were at 35% in the year 2013. They're anticipating by 2030 we will have a world shortage of over 85 million resources, which could cause trillions of dollars in, cost us trillions of dollars in revenue, and there will be a shift in global economy. So what I look at as a short-term strategy would be cross-functional training and internal hiring, and reducing the time to hire, and then a long-term strategy would be creating a talent community around us, and broadening our hiring across horizons, like recruiting skills across countries, from different countries. That's something I look at, and retaining talent as well. Retaining our own resources would definitely be one of the key strategies here.
Oh, fantastic, and I think those are things for us to take care of. It basically means that a CEO's job never ends, does it? It's anything and everything. But I have one or two last questions, but before I do that, I want to ask, we've got our esteemed CEOs here. Hear it from them. Does anybody have questions that you would like to ask them?
Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Kunal. I head the partnerships vertical for Amaha. We're the mental health partner for the event. My question is to all the CEOs, if you agree with the perception that multinational companies have a better company culture than Indian companies, and if so, why do you think that is? Is it because of margin pressure? And I can imagine that Indian companies employ far many more people than, let's say, an MNC of the same industry. Is it because of margin pressure that the focus has been a lot more on profits than it has been on people?
Very interesting question. Who has the better culture?
I mean, we work with both types of organizations. We work with the Godrej's of the world, who are very much Indian companies and have an amazing work culture, amazing, inclusive, open work culture that they profess. And then we work with American Express on the other side, which is multinational, also has an amazing culture. So I think I don't see that distinction. I see amazing small Indian companies and startups who are doing fantastic things from people practice perspective. And then I've seen terrible companies in the last 5 years, which are both at the MNC level as well as in the Indian level. So I don't think that's the distinction that I've at least experienced. I've seen some amazing companies which are both MNCs in India as well as Indian companies that have done really well on the cultural development perspective.
Anybody else? Yeah.
I have worked in all kind of companies, MNCs and Indian companies. I don't feel that MNCs has a only better culture. The Indian companies has also good culture. Sometimes depends. The companies, maybe MNCs are 100 years old. They have more organized way of talking to you. It's again communication. I believe in communication. Maybe the Indian company is new. The honor is little different. They talk little direct. These kind of things may happen. But as an employee also, what is my expectation? I give you example. I joined in a retail company 20 years back. And then 50% business happened on Saturday and Sunday. Then I complained to my boss, boss, I have to work on weekend. He said, my friend, you should have thought before. The 55-60% business come on the weekend and Diwali, Holi, Dashera. And you are a sales guy in the front. You have to be there. So I feel as an employee also, I have to think a lot before complaining about the organization always, right?
Yeah.
That where I am going, am I culturally fit to the organization? What is their demand, right? I worked in a liquor company where I had to deal with a lot of muscle power people. It was very different experience from, I worked with Amul also, selling milk to liquor. It was a very different experience and very different culture, but company is successful with their own culture. As an employee also, sometimes you have to adapt. Where we feel, no, it's only company responsibility is not correct. So my friend is a culturally, there are a lot of Indian companies I am fan of. Thank you.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, my advice will be, please stop thinking about the multinationals. The time has come to focus on India, because I am witnessing the way India is growing. While traveling to several countries, I have seen India is in far, far better positions. 10 years before, we didn't have anything. Today, we have everything. There's a lot of scopes in various sectors. We should focus on that. Even I have, including me or my colleagues, many friends, have worked in MNCs. But at the end of the day, you have come back to a organization to take the leadership of CEO and cleaning the leftover of 5% of the works which has unfinished by the various sections. That is the CEO job. That is what Mr. Nitesh told. You have to work on Sunday and Saturday and holidays because you have to clean those debris. If you clean the debris, you are successful and it pays you end of the day. Thank you.
Right. So with that, thank you everyone. Thank you panelists.